Good evening. This is CTV News for Monday, May 23rd. I'm Patricia Valone.
And I'm Sonia Shrivastava. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight in Baltimore with team coverage outside the city courthouse. It's not guilty for a Baltimore police officer charged in connection with the death of Freddie Gray. And while there have been no reports of unrest, more than 100 Prince George's and Montgomery County police officers are in the city just in case. Officer Edward Nero is the second of 6 to go on trial. Our Byron Scott begins our team coverage.
The trial for Officer Edward Nero lasted 6 days, and at 11 o'clock this morning, the judge rendered his verdict. It was not guilty for Officer Edward Nero on all 3 counts: assault, reckless endangerment, and misconduct in office. Legal observers say they were not surprised.
I'm not surprised. I believed from the inception of the case that the state was going to have a difficult time proving Officer Nero guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Nero is one of 3 officers who were on bike patrol and who chased and arrested Gray on April 12, 2015. Gray died a week later of a severe spinal cord injury.
The judge took his time. He addressed all the disputed facts. I can't say that it wasn't fair because he clearly gave everybody an opportunity to put on the evidence that they thought was relevant and important for him to consider. He considered it, he addressed it in his opinion, and he made a decision. And that's all we can ask.
This was a bench trial, meaning that there was no jury. In his comments, Judge Barry Williams said he agreed with the defense case that Officer Nero had not been properly trained in some aspects of detaining a prisoner. Should someone not be held accountable for that?
Well, it wouldn't be an individual officer in criminal court. Perhaps there's some civil liability to hold people accountable, and I think that ship has already sailed with the $6-point-some million settlement in this case.
Now, there are 5 others yet to go on trial, but some legal observers say they don't think today's verdict will have any bearing on those trials.
The theories of prosecution are very different when you compare that theory of what Officer Nero did, who was just part of the arrest team, versus Officer Goodson, who was the transport driver, and it would be argued that he had the ultimate responsibility to safekeep Freddie Gray and further to call for medical assistance when Freddie Gray apparently needed it.
Now, as you might imagine, some here in Baltimore are not happy with the verdict, and for more on that, we go to Denise Douglas.
That's right, Byron. It has been quite a scene out here outside the courthouse. We have sheriff deputies up and down the sidewalk here, and overhead, police helicopters have been hovering as a form of security, and protesters, of course, out here as well, making their voices heard. Once the not guilty verdict came down against Officer Edward Nero, those protesters erupted in a chant, "No justice, no peace." Wesley West with Faith Empowerment Ministries led their shouts. He says there's no question in his mind that Nero should have been convicted.
Put it this way, any charge, I don't care what charge that the officers were charged with, I think right now that he should have been convicted on something. I don't care what it was, something, he should have been convicted on something, because again, Freddie Gray did not just die by accident, and so he should have been convicted of something. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it was jaywalking. He should have been convicted of something. All of these officers need to be held accountable for the death of Freddie Gray. He did not kill himself. This is not a suicide. This is a homicide. And so he did not kill himself. They need to be convicted.
We've got a 2-tier justice system in this country, and it's got to stop. If anything, they should be on a stricter set of guidelines than we as citizens are, you know?
There are 5 other officers scheduled to be tried in the death of Freddie Gray. Officer Caesar Goodson, who was the driver of the van, is set to go on trial in June. I'm Denise Douglas, CTV News.
Thank you, Denise. And after the Caesar Goodson trial in June, Lieutenant Brian Rice and Officer Garrett Miller are scheduled to have their cases heard in July.
Meantime, a man accused of assaulting a Prince George's police officer pleads guilty to first-degree assault and use of a handgun in a crime of violence. Joseph Clay fled from a traffic stop on the BW Parkway last October and attempted to shoot an officer, but the weapon didn't fire. The state's attorney's office says Clay now faces the next 10 years in prison.
And we want to send a message to people. First of all, gun violence of any kind will not be tolerated here in Prince George's County. And secondly, if you're going to attempt to harm or even kill our police officers and other first responders, we're going to come at you very aggressively and do everything we can to take you off the streets.
Sentencing is scheduled for June 8th. And you are watching CTV News. I'm Patricia Vallone.
And I'm Sonia Shervas.